will be recorded. Our objective today is really to bring you up to speed on some major developments in the world of search engine optimization, and we'll explain what that means to some of you, as not everybody might be aware of what that is, but really to look at the impact that Google is having in this space, not just on the general world of SEO, but some latest developments in the space of Google and jobs specifically. We've tried to mute everybody, but inevitably on these things sometimes there's the odd one that slips through the loop. So if you can ensure that you are muted, that would be great, especially if you're dialing in from a phone. We will be recording the session and we'll share that with delegates afterwards. So don't worry if your questions aren't answered today. We will get back to everyone with the answers that we can get back to you with. There will be an opportunity for people to ask questions via the chat functionality on the webinar panel afterwards. So let's get started. We're really today going to talk to you primarily about, like I said, two things, which is SEO in the general space and Google for jobs. Myself, Nathan Perrott, Director of Digital Strategy here at AIA. Please feel free to connect with me if you want to. And I've got joining me Patrick Welch, Digital Strategist here at AIA. Patrick has a wealth of knowledge in SEO and has worked in our Chicago office in the States, so is very close to those guys over there. And we'll try and go through this as clearly and as succinctly as we can, but appreciate that sometimes over a webinar these things can be a bit difficult to communicate. And we've got a very broad international audience today, which is great. So we will try and be as clear and as articulate as we can. There's been other contributors to this presentation as well. Our Global SEO Director, John Elstad, so thank you to John for that, and also Todd Masonage, who heads up our Innovation Labs team in Chicago. So today, like I said, we're really going to cover two major things, some general SEO updates and trends in the digital marketing world, which largely are around how Google has changed the way that we as consumers and users interact with search engines. And this really sets the tone for what's important today, which is the second thing we'll cover, which is how Google is impacting this job space. We'll look at what's currently live in the US and has been live there for about a month now. We've got some early learnings from that, but it is very, very early days. And what's likely to follow here in Europe and what the impact might be for employers here in the UK and wider afield in Europe. We'll touch briefly on the three distinct initiatives that Google has of note. But we'll do a deeper dive into the Google for Jobs SEO element, and we'll see what that looks like live as well. And then Patrick and I will try and answer as many of your questions as possible afterwards. Don't feel like you have to hang around for that, but like I said, we'll share everything that we get with you afterwards. So first, let's define what search engine optimization means. There are a gazillion different definitions of SEO out there, but they all kind of mean the same thing. This is just one version of ours, which is really the art and science of surfacing your brand content in the organic, which is the non-paid search engine results pages. And really, where Google is focusing these days is on providing answers to people's queries, as opposed to what traditionally used to happen was a set of results for the user to filter through. They've changed their role in the world of answering questions, and if you can answer your audience's questions and needs with content and answering those questions specifically, then you'll do well in the SEO world. But specifically what we're going to talk about later today is around how your job vacancies can get into some of Google's new initiatives. So Patrick's going to take you through some general SEO trends in a minute, but there have been some really seismic shifts in the world of SEO in the last few years, and Google naturally leads the way. We talk about Googling stuff all the time when we really mean searching for stuff, and they've had some major algorithm impacts recently. Mine and Patrick's job is to stay on top of these trends, and not just in SEO, but in the wider digital marketing space like social media and content marketing, technology, and see how these developments impact us as users, consumers, job seekers and candidates, and bring that to our clients to help them understand what they may or may not need to be concerned with. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this today, is it's such an important topic. So I'm going to hand it over to Patrick now, who's going to talk you through some of these trends that sort of tease us up really for what's happening with Google.
Thank you, Nathan. So, I mean, Nathan really put it to the right point where, Google's continuing to change, continuing to optimize, and we typically speak about Google as that is the main search engine that we utilize. Uh, Google has usually around 400 to 500 minor updates annually. It's pretty insane. And just in the last year, they've had 17 major updates, so since 2015. And this doesn't even take into account RankBrain, which is Google's artificial intelligence that was released just over 2 years ago. I'm sure many of you have heard of many of these different changes, but really the biggest, one of the biggest updates is the AI that they've released. Just really a machine learning tool that, it's really focusing not just on the search terms, not just on your title tags or your keywords anymore, but it's really working to understand your website content, your jobs, what people, and it's really looking at connecting that with what people are really looking for. And, Google is continuing to really update the search engine pages, and I'm sure you've been watching this and have seen just this change over the past few years. And it's really to provide users with a better user experience. So if you remember, there was always the big thing that if you weren't on page 1, then you probably weren't even getting a lot of traction. So if you had a search result between 1 and 10, you were still fine. But we've pretty much seen that end of the 10 results page. So now we're starting to see anywhere between 6 to 9 links on a page. So for instance, here for The Guardian, you used to see 6 links in a row of The Guardian, but instead now you're seeing it listed all under The Guardian. So it creates the sublinks under the main just to give you a better understanding of what information is available. And then on top of that, you may see news articles, or in this example, we even see tweets that are showing up just in the general results page. And this is another big example, and I'm sure you're starting to see this as well, where Google's simply showing you some of the information before you even click on any links, just to give you a better idea of what's included in the result before you even do a click through. Now, this is a really big one that we've been seeing, and so over the past year, you've probably been noticing that maybe you're seeing less ads, and it's pretty much searching for anything. You're no longer seeing those really annoying ads on the right side, that like we see on the left. You see the bright yellow ones on the right. But the question is, are those ads really gone? Well, one of the updates that we've actually seen this past year is that Google is simply making the ads look more like the organic or the free results. Thus, when you're trying to rank on Google, you're no longer just competing with the organic results, but you're also competing with those paid ones. So this means that it's really important that you do also take advantage of the paid AdWords side, but I'm not going to go into that here. Just many people do not see that difference between the organic and paid links. And we know that the #1 page and the top links always garner the most clicks. And according to Moz, they're well known in the SEO world, 1.2% of all US searches resulted in an ad click, so one of the top clicks, and 49% of all clicks go to a Google property. So if you click on Google Maps, if you search on YouTube, YouTube is a Google property. That means when you are competing for traffic, you're only competing for 50% of the clicks that go to an organic, non-paid, non-Google related site or content. So in addition, we're now seeing more and more information that's being shown directly in the search results. So it's simply questions such as how to tie a tie. It's providing you with that information right then and there. Or maybe it's information on applying for a job. So according to many SEO professionals, including Moz, around 40% of all searches resulted in no clicks last year. And it's specifically for this reason. I mean, I'm sure most people here have had this. When you see the instant information you need, which answers whatever question you asked, why would you need to click anyways? So Google's been providing answers in the form of what they call snippets. And these are the search results for probably the last year or so now. And again, I'm sure you've seen these in one form or another. And it goes into that answering the question. Well, this example right here, what is a product supply engineer? This is an example that's coming from one of our clients' job descriptions that we've helped optimize for them. And here's a similar example from another one of our clients' job descriptions. It's answering the question and providing visual content from a video still. But what's really interesting, I brought up earlier how Google is now utilizing artificial intelligence and machine learning. The screenshot that you're seeing right here is actually from the middle of a video that's on their page, and Google's AI actually chose that image itself. So now we know that SEO isn't just about Google. And Nathan actually had mentioned before that when you say you're going to search for something, a lot of times you say, I'm going to Google for something. But Google still sends the most traffic, but it's not all there is. Did you know that most of the new voice assistant searches, such as Siri or Cortana, or now we have Alexa as well, they're using search engines other than Google to find the information? You may not be aware of this, as many times the results are simply spoken back to you instead of shown on Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever it may be. In addition, you have new kids on the block such as DuckDuckGo, which were created in 2008, which is quickly growing in traffic and market share. So it's not yet really a major market player, but it's still worth looking at. And many SEO sites such as Moz and Search Engine Watch have noted that DuckDuckGo's traffic continues to increase and most likely won't slow down anytime soon. So what can you do for optimization? And this is for really any of the search engines out there. Just do the same thing that you're doing for Google and Bing. It's about local, it's about mobile, and it's of course about having good quality content that's answering the right questions and having quality links. DuckDuckGo's own site even states linking from Wikipedia, for instance, is a good start. So keep writing and keep sharing. Now, a couple of quick last notes just of overview of SEO before we really get into the job information. There was a statistic this last year that showed the number of typed searches terms during online search in the United States as of August 2016. During that month, over 50% of all US online search queries contained only 2 keywords or less. But what about those verbal search results, which we briefly mentioned earlier? One way at looking if questions were asked verbally is looking at the number of words in a search. Many of the longer search questions are simply coming from people asking their voice assistants for help. If we look specifically at people who search with 10 or more words, for instance, we see that 62% of all of those searches are actually coming from Bing and not Google. Cortana, Alexa, and Siri all use Bing. We're not saying that you need to change your SEO strategy to adapt to people searching for jobs with, obviously voice-activated search right now, but you do need to start thinking about the impact that it could have. Obviously, this is just a small portion of what is happening with SEO over the past year in 2017, as I just wanted to get you thinking about what you're currently doing and if you're prepared for what's coming next. Well, what's already here. So let's pass this back to Nathan to look at Google's entry into the world of jobs.
Thanks, Patrick. So yeah, Patrick's absolutely right. What we're not saying there is you have to go out and build an app for Alexa that helps you with voice-activated job search, but we do need to be cognizant of it and recognize the fact that this is a consumer trend that's moving forward. And you've already got job boards, particularly in the US, like ZipRecruiter, who have built an Alexa app that is starting to test the field in that area, and the impact that that's going to have on candidate experience and recruitment workflows is quite significant. But there's actually a bigger problem that I think a lot of employers need to address right now that they're not aware of, which is the fact that a lot of their jobs are hidden in either what are considered sort of old school ATSs, or even some of the new generation ATSs, don't necessarily allow your jobs to be optimized. And there's a distinct difference between indexation in Google's index, so can Google get to your jobs and index them in its index, and optimization, which means surfacing them high in the organic search results and making them visible in front of candidates. And there is a distinct difference between that. And most ATSs might have their jobs indexable, but they're certainly not optimized. And what we want to help you understand today really is that you really need to start thinking about how you're going to surface those jobs in the organic search results if you don't already have a plan to do that. So let's start talking about what we're all here to talk about, which is Google and jobs. I think some people may have lost audio briefly earlier. Apologies for that, but like I said, it is being recorded, so don't worry too much. So the first play in Google's Google for Jobs is really their search engine optimization listings and how they're getting this out there into the search engine results. And I'll just briefly talk about what it is. So it's essentially a module in the real estate of Google's main search engine results pages, and we're going to do a deep dive into this in a minute and look at some examples live so you can see how it works. It's only available in the US at the moment. It rolled out officially last month, and like I said, it's very much in its infancy. There'll be a lot of testing and learning. Google likes to make lots of tweaks to the UI and the user interface and how people interact with it. You know, it only shows 3 jobs at the moment. You have to explore by clicking on one of the buttons at the bottom or filtering using some of the elements at the top. There's no planned rollout date for Europe yet, although I'm sure it's coming. And from what we know at the moment, it's pulling jobs from job boards like Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Snag-a-Job in the US, Career Builder, Monster, our own Talent Brew platform, which is an SEO tool that we have to help our clients' jobs get out there into the search engine results pages, and a limited number of ATSs. The jobs ultimately link through to the originating source, so that may be on a job board, it may be in your own digital ecosystem where you have your own jobs on your career site, or your ATS if it's one of those ones that's being indexed. And there's not currently any paid advertising in here. This is purely about organic search results. We don't really know how the algorithm's working, and I don't think anyone will ever know apart from a few select few at Google. But there does seem to be some inconsistencies at the moment with how some of the jobs are being displayed. So for example, in the screen grab you can see on the page at the moment, you can see that there's one job for Gap which goes to the client's career site, which is our Talent Brew platform, pulled from 3 months ago, whereas you've got the luxury store manager vacancy underneath it, which was pulled 10 days ago. So there's still obviously a lot to be understood about how these jobs are ranking, and I suspect that there's a lot of testing still going on. We're measuring the impact of this across our clients' Talent Brew platforms, and we have a lot of clients on the call today, so rest assured we're very compliant. We've done everything that Google's asked us to make sure the jobs are getting indexed, so you don't need to worry about your jobs being in here, and we'll work with you to help you understand this. For anyone who's not one of our Talent Brew clients, happy to have a conversation about what your options are with your current ATS vendor or even your current technology stack to help you understand what needs to happen to make your jobs visible. The second element, which has sort of come out from Google, which is in the jobs and recruitment space, is their Cloud Jobs API. It's an ability to add the Google deep learning and algorithm to your career site so that essentially it can be a bit more intelligent than some conventional job searches. So that's using its wide array of data, machine learning, and applying that to help users with semantic search. So it might know that a new business person, sales, or you know, business development jobs. So it understands what those semantics are. And it's currently in a beta rollout. There's a few select vendors. We're one of those to be testing this platform. Unfortunately, I can't tell you any more about it at this stage. But essentially, a user enters the keyword on the career site, and they enter their search, and then the technology is powered by Google to understand all the jobs in the system and match that to its AI and its database. It means that there's better results for the candidate and the job seeker, which means an improved user experience, which will reflect positively on the employer brand. We know that it's not free. There's going to be a cost associated with it. Again, I can't talk too much about that right now, and it's currently only available in US English, but I'm sure that will roll out. And the third element from Google is Google Hire. There's no formal definition of what this is, to my knowledge, right now. although there was an email response to a question that was surfaced on engadget.com, which states that Google Hire is a product under development that will help G Suite customers, so that's people using the Google platform for things like Google Docs, Google Drive and that, to manage their hiring process more effectively. The product will allow employers to collect candidate applications online. So, you know, the industry buzz and people like myself and Patrick are constantly trying to understand what this really is, but it sounds like it's an ATS type solution. It might not be an enterprise solution to start with, probably more small business. Who knows? We'll keep you abreast of what's happening there. And we don't know anything about costs at this stage. But what we're really going to talk about is the thing that matters for your job vacancies right now, and the thing that we do know a little bit more about because it's being released. And that is Google for Jobs. So we'll just look at a couple of scenarios and some screen recordings from us being logged in the States to show you how this works. So the user will be on Google and they might search something like retail jobs in Chicago, and then this is where Google surfaces its technology. Now you can see there are some adverts here in this occasion that are above its widget, but here you have 3 jobs that are listed, and you can then start filtering by different related facets across the top. So if you click on View All Jobs, you get this this experience where you have search results down the left-hand side and the job description on the right-hand side. So this is still all in Google, and you're able to filter through things like category. There's lots of different categories there that Google thinks that this could belong to help the user identify with something that maybe is their existing job title. And you can then add different elements to that and multi-select them. So you can look at things like city, date posted, the type of job, usually full-time or part-time or something like that. The company type, so which sector it's identified in, and the employer itself. So here I selected Amazon, and you can see that there's an Amazon job from iSIMS, which is one of their ATSs. You've got a few jobs on Glassdoor that are being pulled in, and it's really about making a consistent job search. And there's also some added features like adding the alert, which quickly subscribes you to your Google Mail to get alerts for that job. And you can see on this one it's surfacing reviews on Indeed, which allows the user to see contextually relevant reviews. But if we look at another job, we'll see that there's actually reviews being surfaced from Kununu, Glassdoor, and Career Bliss. So there's a lot more content available to the user around that specific job title. Moving on to a more specific search for a retailer, so again I'm going to pick Gap here. So if we look at jobs at Gap in Chicago, we can see now that because we've made a retailer specific search and Gap's jobs are indexed in this Google initiative, then all of these jobs that are surfaced at the moment are actually coming from their careers site. So this is powered by our Talent Brew platform, and the content's being pulled in from Google from the different elements. And when you hit the apply button, that's when you go through to the client's careers site and look at the job description there on their own site. So you can see the impact that this might have from a candidate experience in terms of applying for jobs. It can be a little bit quicker if your jobs are indexed and optimized for search engines automatically. You're not being thrown into a realm where there's other competitors and other jobs from other employers, and overall it will impact the candidate experience in a positive way, which again reflects positively on your employer brand. If we look at an employer where their jobs aren't in the index at the moment to be in this API, if we look at something like Microsoft, then there's a slightly frustrating candidate experience. So if we search jobs at Microsoft in Chicago, we'll get the Google widget pops up, and here we can see that those 3 jobs there are actually coming via LinkedIn. Now Microsoft is a bit of a weird one because you do have people who don't work for Microsoft that might be a Microsoft consultant or an implementation role, for example. But these particular jobs here, there's no jobs currently coming in from Microsoft's platform. So when we click on the job, we can view more about it, as we've seen just now, and we've got the links to go to the different career sites. But in the case where we click on LinkedIn and we see the job on LinkedIn on Microsoft's page, the challenge with this now is that because you're on an owned property, you've got other competitor jobs in that mix with looking at, you know, what else everyone's looked at. Now, that might be helping the candidate, so that's a good thing, but it's also meaning that your competitors' jobs and similar vacancies, similar employers are also being floated. So this is where it becomes really critical to make sure that your own vacancies are indexed in Google, to make sure that you're capturing those candidates directly and not necessarily through another platform. So this might mean an impact in the media space. We don't know what that looks like yet, and we'll cover that off in a minute. But you can see as we start to filter down, there's quite a lot of options for the user right now, and it can be a bit confusing because you could end up multi-selecting these and maybe still not getting necessarily the right job. So we'll move on and look at a specific search that maybe your jobs wouldn't normally surface for. So for example, part-time jobs, $15 an hour in Chicago, and Google's able to surface relevant opportunities for that as well. So this is where it starts to get very considered in terms of, especially if you have hourly paid jobs, you know, I'm sure you're putting salaries on it, but also if you're putting salaries on your professional annual salaried jobs, you could end up gaining more traffic from this. There's a bit of a frustrating experience here where obviously this is picked up from a job board and the call to action hasn't been programmed through, so that's just showing Google how they need to change a few things there maybe. But when we land on the Career Builder site, you can see that we've got that job description there and then. So there's a question to be asked around whether you should be putting salary brackets on your jobs, and that helps candidates anyway. You know, if you're looking for an account manager job, an account manager can be on $20,000 a year, they can be on $100,000 a year. So we really need to help our candidates be more considerate and help them get to the more relevant jobs. Adding salaries on it is only going to help you if your jobs are being indexed by Google in the first place. So we've had a quick look at what Google for Jobs looks like. The next series of slides are not going to win any awards for presentation design, but they've been written in a way that it gives you the verbatim and the narrative to take away after this session, so that you can read through it and walk through this with your technical team, with your recruitment marketing partner, with your HR technology partner, to help you understand a little bit more about what this is about. And we can even send you the slides as well if you want. So I'm just going to talk through this, and for the benefit, there's a few people dialing in that can't see the screen. So in summary, for Google for Jobs, what is it? Well, it's part of the overall Google for Jobs initiative, which launched last month. It's only available in the US at the moment. Users can now see direct job listings in there. We have no idea when this is coming to the UK or Europe, but we do know that it's likely to come, as these things normally roll out a few months afterwards. There is a big cloud over Google at the moment with the fine that they got recently from Margaret Vestager in terms of their anti-competitive behaviour in the shopping results. This could be subject to that. We don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was at least questioned, and that might end up causing some issues with it being rolled out in Europe. It's far too early to speculate, but it's certainly something for us to be aware of. At the moment, there are 3 jobs shown on the first page of results, linking to a deeper list within Google still, but then it links to the originating source. So that might be a career site, an employer career site, it might be a job board, it might be an aggregator or one of the hybrid platforms. The call to action takes the user to that, to where they can apply, and not all searches return the jobs box. Longer, more specific terms, you might just go straight in at the organisation's vacancies. This is a very technical slide, and it's not necessarily designed for this audience or even me and Patrick, to be honest. This is designed for the people who need to understand about how code in your job descriptions, so in your ATS, in your middleware platform, in your career site or on the job board, needs to be coherent with and adhere to Google's set requirements. So you need to basically code up all of the information in your job descriptions so that Google can read and understand it. And then you also need to make sure that they can index the jobs in the first place. And like I said, there are a lot of platforms out there, and ATSs are one of those, where those jobs are not built in a way for this to be surfaced at the moment. Now, that may or may not change, because it's quite a big job for big software as a service organizations to be able to unpick that and recode it, and it could take a while for them to do that. Something to bear in mind there. So how are jobs indexed and ranked? Well, before going live, Google did partner with a number of third-party job sites. Some of those are Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Direct Employers in the US, Monster, Career Builder, etc., to help work with them to understand how those jobs would be pulled in, and to make sure that they coded their sites in a way that would be able to aggregate those. You could be asking the question right now, what does this mean for Indeed? It could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. We'll come on to that in a minute. At launch, Google also released those technical specifications to get those in there. So what I want to reassure our Talent Brew clients on the call is that we are fully compliant. We've added all the schema. If you've got a Talent Brew now, and particularly if you have US jobs, they're already appearing in these search results. And when that comes to the UK and Europe, then we'll be absolutely fine. The exact algorithm, we don't know how that works. Current results include a variety of different sources depending on the search query, and that's not just within its jobs widget, but also on the search results page itself. And early testing does not appear to show one specific destination consistently ranked above others. It's very, very sporadic at the moment, but that could be down to it being the early days of this being launched. Just to show what the impact is on job boards and aggregators, it's far too early to tell, and certainly wouldn't be panicking too much right now. You're still getting a lot of Google PPC, that's the ads that Patrick talked above some of the Google organic search results, so that depends on the specific keywords and the bid limit and how many people are looking for that specific search term. You've got Career Builder in this example here down in the bottom left, owning 2 of those organic results with a company careers site, job site at the bottom of that. So we don't know necessarily at the moment. We're monitoring it. Our clients, where we're tracking their media activity and how impactful that is, we'll let you know. But we do have some early findings to share with you in a minute. Job boards, including LinkedIn, Glassdoor and Career Builder, are currently appearing in the Google job results, as we've seen. However, there is no clear preferential treatment, and it's really important to understand that right now, because we just have to sit tight and see how this plays out, really. Indeed has potentially lost some of the prime real estate that it pretty much owns for a lot of job search results at the moment, and usually that's the first 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 listings, and on occasions that's been pushed down below Google's widget. Now, this could be one of the things that gets contested in the European Commission for Competition as to, is Google being anti-competitive? Does money factor into this, which it kind of did in the shopping incident, which is what they got fined for. This may or may not play out this way. We just don't know at the moment, but we will have to wait and see. The impact of SEO on corporate sites, so employer sites, your career sites, your job sites, however you want to bracket that, basically wherever your vacancies are hosted. We can see from this example on the right hand side here that the client's jobs career site is actually above the Google search results, but even then all the organic listings in the jobs widget that Google's powering is still directing traffic to their own career site. So with the right structure here, the client's winning in both instances. They've got the pure organic results, plus they've got their jobs in Google's index, and that's really what we've been working with our clients and those who have our Talent Brew platform to make sure that's happening for them. The costs and sort of impact on pay-per-click marketing. There's no cost right now to appear in Google's jobs widget, and I suspect that will continue, although it is just my opinion. The PPC ads, the pay-per-click ads from Google, are still available and can appear above the search results. So it feels like they're protecting the advertiser, and to Patrick's point, they're not as obviously highlighted as ads nowadays. So as long as they're relevant and you're not sponsoring words that doesn't help the user, then you should still see a significant piece of traffic from that. What should you do right now? Well, don't make any gut feel decisions. Make sure that you're using data to change your strategy or get yourself prepared for that, and part of that will be looking at your existing vacancies and working with your ATS, working with your middleware partner if you have one, or your career site vendor, and making sure that you're doing the right things to get yourselves ready for this. It's, in my opinion, undoubtedly going to come here, even if it ends up being for a short time. But we can help you with measuring any of that media traffic to help you understand the impact and what that's having from your media, job boards and aggregator purchasing behavior. You need to ensure that your jobs are on your corporate site are compliant with that documentation launched by Google. Like I said, if you are a Talent Brew client, then we've already done the necessary to make sure that your platform's up and running and fully compliant. But you should also consider allowing additional data points to be placed and tracked on your ATS so that you can understand the impact of not just where traffic's coming from and where applications and hires are coming from, but also what additional content you can put on there that will help the user and it will help Google surface your content. For example, things like street address, the starting salary information, etc. All of that's really helpful information, and Google wants to be able to give that to candidates. And lastly, our final thoughts will be that Google will continue to refine their algorithm and experience over time. Change is expected. We'll continue to measure and keep you abreast of trends. You can keep an eye on employerbrand.com, which is our thought leadership blog, where we'll be posting regular updates on this. Google's history has always been to do what is best for the users. So ultimately, if you're doing right by your users, your job seekers, and you're providing content that answers their questions, and your pages are structured and coded in the way that Google wants, then you'll probably be absolutely fine. So I just wanted to share some of our early findings, bearing in mind that this has been live less than a month in the US. We've got 2 large retailers here year over year. So the orange line is this period last year in terms of the traffic they've had from Google that doesn't include paid traffic, so all the organic traffic. And you can see this first retailer on the left, the jump in organic traffic they've had to their job vacancies is significant from the day of launch. And then on the right-hand side, it's still a massive impact, just a steadily growing trend. And we'll keep an eye on that over time. For a large delivery company on the left-hand side, we can see, again, a huge surge in traffic, and it's sort of come down and gone back up again. And then similarly with a restaurant chain on the right-hand side, fairly consistent, but it seems to be on the upward trend. So we're definitely seeing more traffic, more applications, and more hires coming from organic search. So I want to summarize this for you now, because that's been a bit of a flood of information, and we'll then look at what questions we're getting through on the webinar. The 3 takeaway points really are to really make sure that the structure of your vacancy pages is adhere to Google's guidelines by deploying the relevant schemas. There's quite a few different posts on Google's developer blog about this, and to be honest, even when Patrick and I read it, it's quite complicated, so it does need someone who works with the back end of your platforms to help you understand this. And I do suspect that it might be a bit of a challenge for some ATSs to be able to deploy this, which means that you might need some middleware to help with the indexation of your jobs, particularly if you're using an older ATS platform. And lastly, you're going to have to measure your traffic, your applications, and your hires from job boards and from organic search to see what impact this is having on your overall recruitment marketing effectiveness. We often see that organic search is one of the top performing traffic drivers, number of applications, and number of hires for a lot of our clients. But this will have an even deeper impact. And who knows? This might even mean that you end up being able to reduce some of your spend because you've got some organic traffic that would replace that. It's far too early to speculate, but that could be one way that this ends up playing out. So I just want to leave you with 3 areas that you can stay abreast of this information, really. We're AIA. We specialize in attraction, engagement, brand activation, and tracking and optimization. Feel free to reach out to Patrick and I if you've got any questions around how you might do any of what you've heard from today. Absolutely happy to answer your questions, and you can engage with us in any way you want. We're pretty visible over social media. There's our Talent Brew platform, which I mentioned a few times, which is technology to help optimize your candidate experience and job vacancies, and we'll be happy to show you a demo of that to see how you can leverage the latest changes in Google. And then I mentioned employerbrand.com, which is our thought leadership blog where we post a lot of our content and thinking around this sort of thing. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you listening and dialing in. I think I've been a bit overwhelmed by the amount of people that have signed up to this. So we'll do our absolute best now to answer your questions. And if you don't want to ask them in the chat functionality, that's absolutely fine. But feel free to reach out to us, or we'll send you all of this content by email afterwards for you to download and have the audio. We'll send you a PDF of the deck as well if you want it. And you can interact with us after that if you want. So thank you very much. We'll leave the webinar open for a bit now for those who do want to ask any questions. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Let's see, do we have any questions here? Hold on one moment while we go through.
Okay, could Google, here's a question from someone, could Google switch off aggregator sites listings such as Monster or Indeed? Well, Monster's a job board. It looks like Google is absolutely partnering with job boards at the moment because it sees the benefit and the added value that's bringing. Could it switch off Indeed? I doubt it. I mean, Indeed, you know, it has a huge market share across the world, particularly in certain countries. And even if it became the sort of de facto go-to job board for a lot of organisations, then it may not be that they switch it off. I think it'll be interesting to see how Google plays with Indeed's organic dominance that they've had over the last few years, but we'll see. So right now it's unknown, and to be honest, a lot of the answers to these questions might be unknown politician-style answers because we simply don't know. It's so early. I suspect Indeed will be having a plan B, but at the end of the day, right now, the Indeed listings are certainly present in the search results.
So we do have one moment. We have someone asking a question.
If you have any particular questions, if you can use the chat functionality within the webinar, it'd be very helpful because everyone's on mute. Oh, we've got a couple more questions. Question from someone, can you tell us broadly which ATS providers this will be most compatible with? Right now, having looked at some of the older ATSs or the ones that have been around a longer time, I actually can't see any ATS vendors that are compliant right now. There might be, and there's so many out there. It's probably the more nimble ones, but I know that the likes of Taleo and Connexa have never really been structured in a way that makes the jobs optimized, barely indexed sometimes. The likes of Workday, I think, struggle from an optimization point of view. I don't really want to get into naming different ATSs because ultimately that's not what they're designed to do. They're designed to manage applicant workflow and not necessarily get your jobs out there into the search engines and improve the candidate experience, even though technically it makes sense for them to be able to do that. So yeah, happy to pick up with that particular person afterwards if you want to know specifically about a certain ATS. Quick question here, how do you think the job reviews are being selected? Right now there seems to be some inconsistency with the relevancy of the review. I think it's more about employer reviews and possibly picking up the location. I'm sure that will refine over time, and we saw one example of where with Amazon a particular job only Indeed reviews were selected, whereas with another Amazon job you had 4 different review sites, but it seemed to be sending them to the relevant reviews. I'm sure that the reviews will be as important to get them contextually relevant as it will be the actual vacancies, because that's where the added value comes from a candidate experience point of view. Okay, next question. Are you seeing duplicate jobs displaying in the Google Jobs table, such as ones that have been cross-posted amongst multiple job boards? That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. The answer from my experience personally is I haven't seen that, but that doesn't mean to say that that's not possible. I'm sure Google has considered deduplicating jobs, and how it prefers one or the other, I'm not sure. What we have seen is that it is pulling from multiple sources. So it does look like on face value at the moment that it is deduplicating them, but I can't tell you that for sure, I'm afraid. Do ATSs not index all the jobs? So most ATSs will allow Google to crawl their jobs, which then allows them to be in Google's database, the index. But that indexation does not mean optimization, and the challenge here is that yes, they might be in Google's index and they might be quite a delay on that. So there's one way you can check this. Find the URL of one of your job vacancies in the ATS and plonk that URL into Google. Now don't put this in your browser bar at the top, because that will just take you straight to that link, but pop it into Google's search bar, the one that we saw a few times in the middle of the page on google.co.uk or google.com, whatever it might be. Put the URL in there and that'll tell you whether or not it's indexed by Google. So that will deliver you a search results for that URL. Now, just because it doesn't appear straight away doesn't mean to say it won't be indexed. There's probably just a delay on it, and that's a site crawling speed issue in that Google's not going to your ATS and fetching the jobs regularly enough, because it just doesn't see that there's anything of value there. The other thing you can do is, if that doesn't work for you because you've got an iframed an ATS that's embedded in the page, or it's a dynamic URL, which means that the URL isn't specific to the vacancy, which happens in Taleo a lot, then just do a very, very specific search. So use your brand name, use the word jobs, careers, then use the job title, the reference number, the hours, the location, and see if anything comes up. And you'll probably find that it either comes up or it doesn't, but that will give you an understanding as to how well indexed and optimized your jobs are. Okay, next question. Do you think that general job boards need to think of changing their business models because of Google for Jobs? I think it's too early to say, and I certainly don't want to be the one who suggests to all the job boards you need to change your business model. It's really this could be an amazing thing for the job boards. It could be the death of some. Aggregators in with that as well. I just don't know. If I was speculating, I would suggest that maybe then they need. I mean, the job boards and the aggregators particularly have had to evolve with the candidate experience needs and with time anyway, just to provide added value and experience, so that people know to go to a job board as a career portal, not just a job search engine. So it wouldn't surprise me if this maybe boosted the innovation and the rollout of some added value along some of the job boards. It might mean that more niche job boards are actually okay, because they're still the go-to place. It's a great question. I don't know the answer, is the honest truth. It's just my opinion.
I completely agree with Nathan on this. I think for the niche job boards, it's really going to help, because a lot of the examples that we showed you were for very well-known brands, and it went to their career site. These are companies that have hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs. But there's also a lot of companies out there that may not hire a lot of jobs, or they're hiring very specific niche jobs, which, if a niche job board has many of those type of jobs and someone is simply searching for that genre of category, well, that job board is probably going to show up in Google for Jobs. But again, this is all speculation.
Lovely. There are lots of questions coming through now, so I'm going to try and be selective here. Someone's commented on that question just now. It says, one idea could be to change cost per click to cost per application models and use Google to best quality traffic on listings. That's absolutely right, and I do think that we've already started to see over the last few years a few job boards adopt a pay performance model. Yep. And I think naturally that's the way that cost per click evolved into cost per application, which is pay per performance. We might even see a change in the cost per hire. So you'll pay a higher fee, but if you get a hire out of the job board, then you'll pay them for that, almost like a kind of high street recruiter, I guess, in a way. And then it's on the job board to add the value and to make sure that they're sending you relevant, qualified talent. it's a great idea. We've seen it. I think Monster have played around with that, and possibly Indeed as well.
Indeed, starting to go on that model as well.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a bit of a shift in that space now. If we buy Google AdWords, will that give my company preferential treatment on Google for job surfacing results? Do you want to say that one?
Yeah, why not? So the fun thing with pay-per-click of anything is you are competing or paying for that click. If no one else is paying more for that click than you are, you probably will have preferential treatment. From the few examples that we've shown you, and both Nathan and I have played around with Google for Jobs quite a bit, we typically do see AdWords, at least a few ads, ranking above the widget. But again, it's very specific to what keywords that you are bidding on, and who else is bidding on those AdWords. But I would always recommend that AdWords are a good way to go, just as part of your recruitment strategy.
Great, thanks, man. The last question that we've got come in is, how can we get the job codes that Google is using? So this is the code, they call it schema, which helps the search engines understand the different tags and fields that go in there. You can Google that. You'll find it on the Google developer blog, but what we will do is send that out to everybody who's been on this call, as well as the recording of this session, and if you want it, a PDF of the document as well. So thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate your time. Hope you found it valuable. Please email me or Patrick with any feedback that you've got, and we'll do our best to come back to you and answer your questions even after the session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.